I was halfway through putting on my coat when my phone buzzed 3 missed calls from my lawyer, Richard Hale. Then, a message popped up that made my blood run cold. Isabella. Call me now. Don't go to your sister's house. I mean it. For a second I just stood there, one arm in my sleeve, the other frozen midair. My sister Emily had been begging me all week to come over for Sunday dinner. It's been forever, Isa. I made your favorite roast chicken, like Mom used to. I almost smiled remembering her voice. Almost, but now? Every word replayed like a warning I hadn't heard. I dialed Richard with shaking hands. He answered on the first ring. Where are you? At home. Why? Good. Lock your doors. I'm on my way. There's something you need to see. Something about your sister and your inheritance. And just like that, dinner turned into danger. 20 minutes later, Richard's car pulled up in front of my house. He didn't even bother with small talk when I opened the door. His expression was tight, the kind of look lawyers wear when they're about to deliver news that breaks something inside you. Isabella, he said, stepping inside. Please, sit down. He placed a heavy brown envelope on my kitchen table. I could feel my pulse pounding in my throat. What's going on? You're scaring me. He took a deep breath. 3 days ago, your sister, Emily, and her husband, Derek Roberts, filed a petition with the Court of Queen's Bench. They're asking to have you declared mentally incompetent. I blinked at him, trying to process the words. Declared? What? I laughed, short and shaky. Richard, that's ridiculous. I run a design business. I handle clients, deadlines, taxes. I'm fine. I know, he said quietly. But they're claiming you've been showing early signs of cognitive decline, confusion, forgetfulness, erratic judgment. They have documentation. He opened the envelope and spread out several papers, lining them up like evidence in a criminal case. These are signed affidavits. Your doctor's note from last winter, the one where you mentioned trouble sleeping. They're twisting it into a sign of neurological decline. And look here, he slid another sheet toward me. A statement from your neighbor saying you looked disoriented one morning taking out the trash. I stared at the papers, words blurring. That was the day I had the flu. I nearly fainted from fever. I know, he said again. But his tone carried that grave patience of someone who's seen this before. They're building a pattern. He turned his laptop toward me. Do you know how much your parents' old property is worth now? I hesitated. Maybe 2 million? Try 5. He clicked. The appraisal came through last month, $5.1 million, including the lake house. You inherited half of it after your parents passed. That's what this is about. My heart stopped for a beat. You're telling me Emily is trying to declare me insane just to take the estate? Richard's eyes met mine. Yes. If they win, they become your legal guardians. They'd control everything, your accounts, your house, even medical decisions. I sank into the chair, staring at the grain of the table we'd sanded ourselves, my hands trembling. Emily and I had eaten breakfast here last year, laughing over coffee. She used to say we'd always protect each other, I whispered. That we were the only family left. Richard's voice softened. Sometimes people change, Isabella. Especially when money's involved. Outside, the first flakes of snow drifted past the window. Inside, I felt something colder settle in my chest, the realization that the person I trusted most was quietly trying to erase me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if blood really meant family. Richard pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose and opened a folder on his laptop. You need to see this, he said. It's the financial statement they filed alongside the petition. The screen glowed with rows of numbers and debts. Emily and Derek, he continued, are drowning financially. They bought a new home in Aspen Ridge 3 years ago, 6 bedrooms, a pool, imported marble countertops. Mortgage, $720,000. Derek's eco-tech startup burned through $400,000 in losses. Their credit cards are maxed out and they're behind on property taxes. I stared at the numbers, my mind spinning. So they want my assets to fix their mistakes. He nodded grimly. They're arguing that you've become vulnerable since your parents died, that your emotional state affects your decision-making. They're framing this as protection, but what they're really protecting is their lifestyle. My voice cracked. She's my sister, Richard. She knows I've been careful with money. I didn't even buy a car until I was 40. I believe you, he said. But she's been collecting little moments, selective snapshots of normal forgetfulness. Every time you mixed up a date or misplaced your keys, she probably took note. I remembered the way Emily used to hover when I paid bills online last month. "You should let me help," she'd said sweetly. "Technology can be confusing." I'd laughed it off, thinking she was just being protective. Now that laughter felt naive. Richard tapped another file. "They even brought in your family doctor, Dr. Benson. He wrote a vague note about you, appearing distracted during an appointment last fall. That was when Mom's estate documents were still unresolved." I snapped. I was grieving, not confused. Richard exhaled. "I know. But in court, grief and incompetence can look dangerously similar on paper." Silence filled the kitchen. Only the hum of the refrigerator punctuated it. "So what do we do?" I finally asked. He leaned forward, his voice steady. "First, we prove you're of sound mind. I'll set up an independent psychiatric evaluation. Second, you'll start keeping a daily log appointments. Meals, conversations, anything that shows structure and awareness. Third," he hesitated, "you can't let Emily know we know. If she realizes, she might destroy evidence or rush the process." I swallowed hard. "So I have to pretend everything's normal?" "Yes," he said, "even friendlier than usual if you can manage it." I almost laughed again, but there was no humor left in me. Dinner and deception. Perfect. Richard's tone softened. "I've seen families do terrible things over money, Isabella. But I've also seen people win with preparation and proof. You're not alone in this." I nodded, though inside I felt hollow. The woman who once braided my hair before school, who held my hand at our parents' funeral, that same woman was now plotting to declare me unfit to live my own life. And I was beginning to understand. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war. From that night on, every hour of my life became evidence. Richard was relentless but methodical. "You'll keep a daily log, Isabella," he said. "Every decision, every errand, every phone call. Timestamp everything. If they claim you're forgetful, we'll drown them in proof." So I did. I wrote down everything: what time I woke up, what I cooked, who I talked to, which emails I sent. At first, it felt absurd, like living inside my own surveillance file. But after a week, I understood the purpose: control. It gave me back something Emily had quietly stolen: credibility. The next step was the medical evaluation. Richard scheduled an appointment with Dr. Elaine Moore, a geriatric psychiatrist known for her sharpness and empathy. During our session, she asked me to recall lists, solve puzzles, and interpret proverbs. I nailed every question. When she closed her notebook, she smiled. "Miss Carter," she said, "you're as mentally sharp as anyone I've evaluated this year. I'll have my report to Mr. Hale within 48 hours. It felt like oxygen after drowning. But pretending around Emily? That was the real test. On Wednesday, she called. Her voice was coated in syrup. "Hey, Isa. I feel awful about last weekend. You just vanished on me. Why don't we try again this Sunday? I'm making your favorite lasagna." I forced a light laugh. "That sounds nice." It's still getting stand in the room. Oh, and if you could bring those papers I asked about the estate documents, I'll help you sort them. You know how confusing legal stuff can be." My grip tightened around the phone. She was baiting me. "Sure," I said softly. "I'll see what I can find." When I hung up, I texted Richard immediately. "Isabella. She wants me to bring estate papers Sunday." "Richard, don't. That's a setup. They might film or record you acting confused. Keep pretending everything's fine." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Emily's voice in my head, the warm tone that once comforted me when Mom died. Now it sounded rehearsed, poisoned with intent. I went through my photo albums, scrolling through pictures of us. 2 little girls at the lake house, covered in sand and sunshine. 2 teenagers whispering secrets under the covers. 2 women hugging at our parents' graveside. What happened to that sister? The one who promised, "We'll always take care of each other." A dull ache spread in my chest. Betrayal doesn't arrive with thunder. It creeps in quietly, smiling, calling you sis. I closed my journal that night and whispered to the empty room, "I won't let you take my life, Emily. Not my money, not my name, not my mind." Somewhere deep inside me, fear finally shifted, turning into something sharper. Determination. Friday night, as rain drummed softly against the windows, I heard a timid knock at my front door. When I opened it, I froze. Lily, my 15-year-old niece Emily's daughter, stood there, soaked and trembling, clutching her backpack like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Lily? What on earth? Please, Aunt Izzy, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. Can I come in? They don't know I'm here. Her voice cracked on the last word. I ushered her inside, wrapped her in a blanket, and made her cocoa. She looked like a ghost of the bubbly kid who used to braid my hair and ask for art supplies every Christmas. After a long pause, she pulled out her phone. I know what Mom's doing. And you have to hear this. I frowned. Lily, what? She pressed play before I could finish. Emily's voice filled the kitchen. Once the court declares Isabella incompetent, we'll sell her condo and transfer her accounts to me. She won't even realize what's happening. Then Derek's voice followed, low and calculating. That'll pay off our debts and buy us time with the investors. After that, we can rebuild. And then Emily again, her tone sharp like a blade. She's had everything handed to her. It's about time it went to someone who deserves it. Lily's hands were shaking as she stopped the recording. I found Dad's tablet unlocked. They were talking about you like you weren't even a person. I know it's wrong, but I recorded it. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The world tilted, my breath stuck halfway between rage and heartbreak. Lily, I whispered, you just saved me. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't want to betray Mom, but what she's doing, she's not the same person anymore. She talks about money all the time. It's like she hates you. I took her hand. You did the right thing, sweetheart. Sometimes doing the right thing feels wrong when it's someone we love. Created. I sent the file to Richard that night. He called back almost immediately. Isabella, he said, voice steady but tight. This changes everything. This isn't just a guardianship case now, it's fraud and financial exploitation. That recording is direct evidence. What do we do next? We file a counter-petition, he said. We're going to take this to court, and this time, they'll be the ones defending themselves. As I hung up, I looked at Lily, my niece, my new ally, the only innocent left in the wreckage Emily had created. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, but inside, I finally felt calm. For months, Emily had been writing the script to steal my life. Now, thanks to her own daughter, I finally had the ending. The morning of the hearing, the sky hung low and gray, a mirror of the storm inside me. Richard and I stood outside the courthouse, the marble steps slick from the night's rain. I clutched my folder of documents like armor, my heart pounding in my throat. Ready? Richard asked quietly. I nodded, even though my body trembled. As I'll ever be. Inside, the courtroom smelled of old wood and nerves. Emily sat across from me, her hair perfectly styled, her posture immaculate. She looked every bit the caring sister, the kind who just wanted to protect me. But when our eyes met, something flickered. Guilt? Fear? Or just calculation? Derek leaned toward her, whispering something. She didn't respond. When the judge, Honorable Marcia Caldwell, entered, everyone rose. Her expression was cool, unreadable, the kind of face that had seen every family lie imaginable. The bailiff called the case. Roberts v. Carter petition for guardianship. Emily's attorney, a sleek man in a navy suit, began. Your Honor, this is a heartbreaking case. My client, Mrs. Roberts, has spent months caring for her sister, who has shown alarming signs of cognitive decline. Mrs. Roberts only wishes to ensure her sister's safety and protect her finances before irreversible damage occurs. He gestured toward me as if I were a child who might wander off at any moment. Richard didn't move, didn't blink. He simply waited. The opposing lawyer continued, stacking their so-called evidence photographs, medical notes, receipts, witness statements. Here, Your Honor, you'll see Miss Carter appearing disoriented at a pharmacy. Here, she forgets her car keys at a restaurant. Here. That's enough, Judge Caldwell said sharply. We'll get to the defense soon. My chest tightened as she turned toward Richard. Mr. Hale? He stood, calm but burning with quiet conviction. Your Honor, this petition isn't about protection. It's about greed. Emily flinched. I'd like to submit an independent psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Elaine Moore, Richard continued. The report states that Miss Carter shows no signs whatsoever of cognitive impairment. In fact, She tested well above average for her age group. The judge's brow arched. Is that so? Richard handed the report to the clerk. Furthermore, I'd like to present evidence that Mrs. Roberts and her husband are under severe financial distress, over $700,000 in mortgage debt, $400,000 lost in a failed business, and substantial unpaid taxes. I mean in the contents, the room murmured. Emily's lawyer stood abruptly. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. It's entirely relevant, Richard snapped, his voice ringing through the chamber. Because it explains motive. He let the silence stretch, then nodded to me. I reached into my folder with trembling hands and produced a small USB drive. Your Honor, Richard said, this is an audio recording provided by Mrs. Roberts' own daughter, 15-year-old Lily Roberts. It captures a conversation between the petitioners Emily and Derek discussing their plan to have Miss Carter declared incompetent and to liquidate her assets for personal gain. Gasps filled the courtroom. Emily's face went pale. Play it, the judge said simply. The audio began to play. Emily's voice calm, casual, venomous. Once the court declares Isabella incompetent, we sell her condo, transfer her accounts. She won't even realize what's happening. Then Derek's voice smug. That'll pay off the debts and buy us time. After that, we rebuild. She's had enough, Emily added. It's our turn. The judge's expression hardened with every word. When the recording stopped, the silence was suffocating. You could hear every heartbeat in the room. Richard stepped forward. Your Honor, this isn't guardianship. This is calculated elder abuse and attempted financial exploitation. Emily's lawyer scrambled for footing. Your Honor, that recording was obtained without consent. This isn't a criminal trial, Judge Caldwell cut him off, and I find it very relevant to intent. She turned to Emily. Mrs. Roberts, would you like to explain why you're discussing selling your sister's property while she's sitting right here, perfectly lucid? Emily's lips parted. That was taken out of context. The judge leaned forward, voice like ice. What possible context justifies planning to take your sister's home? Emily's silence was answer enough. Tears welled in my eyes, but not out of sadness. It was release the kind that comes when truth finally has oxygen. Judge Caldwell adjusted her glasses. This petition is not only dismissed, it is dismissed with prejudice. Mrs. Roberts and Mr. Roberts are hereby prohibited from contacting Miss Carter or approaching her residence within 100 meters for the next 2 years. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the Crown Prosecution Service for potential charges of fraud and elder abuse. Legal costs incurred by Miss Carter will be paid by the petitioners. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through my bones. Emily buried her face in her hands. Derek stared at the floor. I exhaled, shaky, disbelieving, free. Richard placed a hand on my shoulder. It's over, Isabella. But as I looked across the courtroom at my sister, the woman who once braided my hair, who once held my hand through grief, I realized something deeper. It wasn't over. Not really. Because the wounds left by family betrayal don't end with a verdict. They linger, they scar. And yet, standing there under the heavy silence of justice, I finally felt strong enough to start healing. When the gavel fell for the last time, the courtroom emptied quickly, everyone eager to escape the heaviness that had filled the air. But I stayed in my seat for a while, just listening to the silence. It was strange how victory could feel so hollow. Richard packed his files beside me. You did incredibly well, he said gently. You stayed calm, composed. The judge saw the truth. Did she? I whispered, my eyes fixed on the doorway where Emily had just disappeared. Because I still can't believe what the truth actually is. Outside, the cold air hit my lungs like ice. Reporters were already murmuring, court officers moving briskly around us, and then soft footsteps behind me. Aunt Izzy? Lily stood there, her face streaked with tears. I pulled her into a hug. She clung to me like she'd been holding her breath for days. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I didn't mean for Mom to. I cut her off, pressing a hand against her cheek. No, Lily. You did the right thing. You were brave when the adults weren't. Don't ever apologize for that. Richard cleared his throat beside us. The judge's referral to prosecution is official. There'll likely be charges fraud, attempted exploitation. I'll handle the paperwork. I nodded numbly. And Emily? She'll face consequences, he said. But more than that, she'll face herself. That night, the house felt different. Quiet, but not lonely. I brewed tea and sat at the table where it had all begun, staring at the faint coffee ring Emily had left months ago. For a long time, I just let myself feel it all, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the exhaustion. When my phone buzzed, it was a text from Lily. Can I stay with you for a while? Dad's furious. I don't want to be there. I typed back before my mind could catch up. Pack a bag. You're home now. An hour later, she arrived with a single duffel bag and tear-swollen eyes. We didn't say much. I made her hot chocolate. She fell asleep on the couch, and for the first time in months, I slept peacefully too, because even though I'd lost a sister, I'd gained something purer. Family built not by blood but by truth. Weeks passed, and the house that had once felt like a battleground slowly turned into a home again. Lily's laughter filled the hallways in the mornings as she rushed to get ready for school. We cooked together in the evenings, watched old movies, and planted herbs in the backyard. The silence that used to echo between the walls now sounded like peace. One afternoon, she looked up from her homework and asked quietly, "Aunt Izzy, do you think you'll ever forgive her?" The question landed like a stone in my chest. I set my mug down and stared out the window. The last of the autumn leaves fluttered to the ground. Forgiveness, I said slowly, isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about deciding not to let what happened control you anymore. Lily nodded, her eyes glistening. I miss the way she used to be. Me too, I admitted softly. Your mom and I used to share everything. She was my best friend before she became my enemy. But sometimes love gets twisted when money is involved. People stop seeing faces, they see dollar signs. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. That weekend, Richard stopped by with a folder in his hand. I have the final paperwork, he said. Your estate is secure. The court officially closed the guardianship file. But, Isabella, I recommend setting up a trust, something that protects your assets long-term. For Lily's future, perhaps. I smiled faintly. I already made up my mind. He raised an eyebrow. Oh? I want to create a trust in Lily's name, I said. For her education, her independence, everything she'll need to build her own life. She's the only one who stood up for the truth. Lily's eyes widened. Aunt Izzy, you don't have to. I want to, I interrupted, reaching over to squeeze her hand. You saved me, Lily. And more importantly, you reminded me that integrity still exists even in this family. Richard smiled, that rare, quiet smile of relief. Then, let's make it official. When he left, Lily and I sat together, surrounded by open books and half-eaten cookies. The world outside still carried the chill of betrayal, but inside these walls, warmth was returning. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. But for the first time, I believed it could be rebuilt at all. 6 months later, winter melted into spring, and the sharp edges of everything that had happened began to soften. Lily and I drove out to the lake house, the same one my parents had left to Emily and me, the same property she had tried to steal. The road wound between budding trees, sunlight spilling through like forgiveness. When we arrived, I parked by the old dock. The water shimmered in quiet ripples, reflecting the sky. Lily stepped beside me, her hair caught in the wind. Do you ever miss her? She asked. I took a long breath. Sometimes, I admitted. But I think I miss the idea of her more than the person she became. She looked down at the water. I used to think family meant loving someone no matter what. I will see, I smiled sadly. It means loving them without letting them destroy you. For a while, neither of us spoke. We just listened to the wind, the waves, the whisper of a world still turning after everything had fallen apart. Grandpa used to say this lake was where he felt closest to Grandma, I murmured. Now, I think I understand why. Peace doesn't come from who stays in your life. It comes from who doesn't take your peace away. Lily leaned against my shoulder. Do you think Mom will ever change? I looked at the horizon, the sun beginning to sink. Maybe. But that's her path, not ours. When we got home that evening, I walked through the doorway and paused. The same walls that once witnessed fear now carried laughter, warmth, and light. The same house my sister had tried to take from me was now a place of healing. Emily had tried to strip me of everything, my home, my dignity, my future. Instead, she'd revealed what could never be taken. Not my mind, not my worth, and not the love I chose to build. As Lily studied at the dining table, I poured us both tea and smiled. Family, I realized, wasn't about bloodlines or shared last names. It was about who showed up when the world turned against you. And sometimes, the truest family isn't the one you're born with, but the one that stays.